Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily Winters didn't look back as the heavy glass doors of society closed behind her, but her mind felt like it was spinning, every second replaying the moment her hand connected with Phyllis Summers' cheek, the slap that had thundered through the restaurant like a shockwave, a release of years of pent-up frustration, betrayal, humiliation, and quiet suffering she had swallowed for far too long. The cool night air hit her face, sharp and grounding, but her chest still rose and fell in hard, uneven breaths, the adrenaline refusing to settle as she walked across the parking lot with a resolve she had never felt so clearly before. People inside were still stunned, she could feel their shock radiating from behind those glass walls. She knew within minutes someone would text someone else, who would text someone else, until the entire city knew Lily Winters had delivered the slap of the decade, but for once, she didn't care about the whispers. She didn't care about the headlines. She didn't care about the fallout. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt like she was finally choosing herself. And yet, even as she felt that empowerment simmer in her veins, her heart throbbed painfully when she thought about Kane's face, the heartbreak etched into every line of his expression as her final words hung between them like a ghost. Kane Ashby had been the love of her life, a man she rebuilt with, a man she forgave endlessly, a man she tried to believe in even when belief felt like delusion, but love wasn't enough anymore, not when chaos clung to him like a shadow he refused to step out of. Lily reached her car and gripped the door handle, inhaling sharply as her emotions swirled, threatening to topple the strength she had pieced together to walk out of that restaurant without collapsing. But then she thought of Phyllis leaning over Kane with that smug, infuriating smirk, like she owned the ground she stood on, like she hadn't spent months pushing herself into cracks that weren't hers to fill, and Lily felt her resolve harden all over again. She had tolerated Phyllis Summers for far too long, tolerated her needling, her meddling, her manipulation that always came dressed as concern or advice or friendship, tolerated the little digs, the strategic appearances, the moments she accidentally inserted herself at the worst possible times. And Kane had let it all happen. He had opened the door, even if he claimed he didn't mean to. He had allowed the lines to blur until Lily no longer recognized where the distance began, between them, between trust and doubt, between loyalty and weakness. Lily had held everything together, believing the storm would pass, believing the man she loved would finally stand up and shut down the chaos circling their marriage. But he didn't. And tonight, inside that packed restaurant, when she saw Phyllis leaning toward him with that faux innocent tilt of her head, when she saw Kane not pushing her away, not immediately, not forcefully, not enough, something inside Lily finally snapped. And God, did it snap loudly. She opened her car door and sank into the driver's seat, her pulse still racing, her hands trembling as she braced them against the steering wheel, trying not to crumble under the emotional weight pressing down on her chest. The memories flooded her, Kane's past mistakes, the affair, the lies, the nights she cried her eyes dry, the hours she spent convincing herself she could forgive, the exhaustion of trying to be the bigger person every time chaos found its way into their home. She had fought for them, fought hard, fought with every ounce of hope she had left, but she couldn't be the only one fighting. She couldn't be the only one protecting what they built. She couldn't be the only one saying no to the people trying to destroy it. Tonight was a breaking point, but it was also clarity she had been avoiding out of love, loyalty, and fear of letting go. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, Kane, Devon, Billy, her kids, but she couldn't bring herself to look at the screen. She wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Not when the echo of that slap still rang in her ears, like a symbol of everything she had endured and everything she was finally stepping away from. Inside society, she knew Kane was probably spiraling, replaying every moment, realizing too late that his passivity had cost him something precious. She could picture him rubbing his forehead, pacing, heart crumbling as the reality settled. Lily wasn't bluffing. She was gone. And Phyllis, Lily nearly laughed despite herself, Phyllis was probably still rubbing her cheek, stunned that someone finally knocked the entitlement out of her. Phyllis Summers had always prided herself on being unshakable, But Lily had looked her in the eye and delivered a truth Phyllis never expected. Her chaos had consequences, consequences she couldn't charm or scheme or claw her way out of this time. Lily rested her head against the seat, breathing deeply as emotion swelled in her throat. She loved Kane. That was the hardest part. She would always love him, but sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes love required distance. Sometimes love meant stepping away before resentment swallowed everything good that remained. She remembered the way Kane's voice cracked when he whispered her name, remembered the heartbreak in his eyes as she said she no longer trusted him. That truth had gutted her as much as it gutted him, but it was real, and she wouldn't lie to make him feel better. Trust wasn't something she could fake. Not anymore. Not after everything. She started the engine, the soft hum filling the silence, grounding her as she wiped away the single tear that slipped down her cheek. I deserve peace, she whispered to herself, needing to hear it aloud. I deserve better than chaos. I deserve better than being an afterthought in my own marriage. Her hands tightened on the wheel as she looked one last time at the glowing society sign in the rearview mirror, a symbol of both the worst and the most freeing moment of her year. Then she put the car in drive. As she pulled out of the parking lot, the city lights blurred slightly through her tears, but she blinked them away, determined to stay clear, determined to stay strong, determined to choose herself, fully, unapologetically, finally. She didn't know where she was going yet, to the Chancellor Mansion to pack? To the airport? To spend a night alone somewhere quiet so she could breathe? All she knew was that she was done allowing people like Phyllis to pull strings in her life. She was done letting Kane lean on her strength while refusing to confront his own weaknesses. She was done sacrificing her happiness for the sake of a marriage she'd been fighting to protect alone. She drove into the night, the weight of her decision both crushing and liberating, but her heart felt lighter. Not healed. Not yet. But lighter than it had in months. And somewhere inside society, Kane Ashby was beginning to understand the full reality of what he had just lost. The woman who'd loved him harder and more faithfully than anyone else ever would. Lily didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if Kane would step up, or crumble, or chase her, or let her go. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: the slap, the confrontation, the goodbye, they weren't moments of weakness. They were moments of truth. Moments she needed. Moments she couldn't take back even if she wanted to. Her phone buzzed again, but she ignored it, focusing instead on the quiet road ahead, repeating the words that had become her anchor, I choose me. And as the city faded behind her, Lily Winters felt, for the first time in a long time, like she was finally stepping into a future she controlled, one not defined by betrayal, manipulation, or emotional exhaustion, but by strength, clarity, and reclaiming her worth. The slap had been the headline, but Lily walking away? That was the real story. And Genoa City would never forget the night Lily Winters chose herself, and refused to look back. Lily Winters had promised herself she would keep her composure, that she would walk into society, face Phyllis Summers with dignity, and leave Genoa City without creating another headline-worthy blow-up, but all of that resolve shattered the moment she stepped into that bustling restaurant and saw Phyllis leaning over Kane Ashby like she owned him, like she had every right to insert herself into a marriage she spent months undermining. The room went silent as Lily stormed forward, her heels striking the floor like thunder, fury vibrating off her in waves that made even the waitstaff freeze. Kane shot up from his chair, startled, unsure what version of his wife he was about to face, but it was already too late. Lily had locked onto Phyllis with laser focus, her eyes burning, her jaw clenched so tightly her teeth could have sparked flames. I should have known, Lily hissed, voice shaking, I should have known you couldn't stop meddling for even one day. Phyllis smirked, that smug, self-satisfied curve of her lips that had tormented countless people in Genoa City over the years, but she didn't get a single word out before Lily stepped closer, raised her hand, and delivered a slap so sharp, so loud, so shocking that every last conversation in society died instantly. The slap heard around Genoa City echoed as Phyllis stumbled back, eyes wide, hand flying to her cheek, her signature red hair swinging with the force of the blow. Kane exhaled in disbelief, frozen somewhere between horror and a realization he had been trying to avoid for far too long. this moment wasn't about Phyllis, it was about him, everything he had done, everything he failed to prevent, everything he turned a blind eye to while Lily was fighting to keep her dignity intact. Lily's voice cracked with rage and heartbreak as she leaned in toward Phyllis, whispering in a tone that sliced sharper than any public confrontation Phyllis had ever faced, "Stay out of my life. Stay away from my family. Stay away from Kane. You are done with us." Phyllis tried to recover, tried to muster some bold comeback, but the entire room saw it. For once, Phyllis Summers had been rattled, truly rattled, and there was no quick-witted jab to save her this time. But Lily wasn't finished, not even close. She turned to Kane, eyes shimmering not just with anger but with the exhaustion of fighting for a relationship she realized she had been holding together alone for far too long. "You let her push and push, you let her get into our marriage, you let her manipulate everything until I barely recognized who we were anymore," Lily said, her voice trembling, but steady enough to let him know she wasn't backing down. Kane tried to reach for her, his voice soft, pleading, trying to explain, trying to apologize, but Lily stepped back, shaking her head. "No. Not this time. Every time Phyllis poked, you flinched. Every time she stirred something up, you let her. And every time I tried to fix what was breaking, you kept hoping it would fix itself. But it won't. It won't because you won't fight for us the way I have." Kane swallowed hard, the weight of her words hitting him like cold water. But Lily's gaze softened only slightly, enough to show she still cared, enough to show she was still hurt, enough to show this wasn't easy for her in the slightest. "I am done begging you to choose me over chaos," she whispered. "I am done cleaning up messes created by other women who shouldn't have been anywhere near our marriage. And I'm especially done letting Phyllis Summers act like she is the center of the universe." Kane tried again, desperate now, insisting that Lily misunderstood, that Phyllis had exaggerated everything, that he never meant for things to go this far, but Lily held up a hand, stopping him with the same steady, icy resolve she once used to run a multimillion-dollar company. "You want the truth?" Lily said, her voice low but filled with unmistakable finality. "I don't trust you anymore. Not with her around. Not with all the lies and secrets. Not after everything." And for the first time since she walked in, Kane seemed to truly understand, this wasn't a threat. This wasn't a warning. This was goodbye. Phyllis, attempting to recover her pride, lifted her chin as if she were about to fire off one of her infamous comebacks, but Lily beat her to it. "If you ever come near me again," Lily said, stepping so close their foreheads nearly touched, "I will make sure your world collapses just like you tried to collapse mine. Stay away from me. Stay away from Kane. Stay away from my children. You're poison, Phyllis, and I'm done pretending otherwise." Phyllis sputtered, tried to defend herself, tried to rewrite the narrative like she always did, but Lily wasn't having it. "Don't you dare twist this," she warned, eyes blazing. "This is on you. You pushed too far. You meddled too much. And now you get exactly what you wanted, chaos. Congratulations." Phyllis looked rattled in a way no one expected, genuinely shaken, her ego bruised, her confidence cracked. Society guests exchanged stunned glances, unsure whether to intervene, applaud, or duck for cover, but Lily didn't care. She had one final mission before she walked out of Genoa City for good. Turning back to Kane, she stepped closer, her voice suddenly softer but heavier with meaning. "I love you," she admitted, because Lily Winters had never been a coward. "I loved you enough to forgive the unforgivable. I loved you enough to rebuild what you broke. I loved you enough to pretend that everything was fine even when it wasn't. But loving someone doesn't mean destroying yourself to keep them comfortable." Kane's throat tightened, and for a moment, it looked like he might break down right there in front of everyone. His voice cracked as he whispered her name, but Lily reached up, pressing her fingers to his lips gently. "No. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't tell me you'll change. Don't tell me Phyllis is out of your life. Don't tell me you'll protect us from her madness. You had 1,000 chances. I begged you to step up. You didn't." Tears filled Kane's eyes, and the raw pain in his expression almost made Lily falter, but she had already made her decision. "I'm leaving Genoa City," she said, and the shock that rippled across Kane's face was immediate and overwhelming. "I need a fresh start. I need peace. I need to remember who I am without constant chaos swirling around me." Kane tried again to reach for her, but Lily stepped away, shaking her head once more. "Kane, you need to figure out who you are without relying on me to fix everything. Maybe one day you'll understand why I had to do this." Phyllis, who had regained only a shred of her bravado, attempted to interject with a shaky, "You're being dramatic," but Lily whirled back around, her eyes blazing with a warning so fierce that Phyllis visibly recoiled. "Say one more word," Lily whispered, "and I swear the next slap won't be just a warning." The room collectively exhaled when Phyllis fell silent, finally understanding she'd pushed someone too far. Lily turned away, smoothing her jacket, gathering what dignity she had left after months of emotional exhaustion, betrayal, and manipulation she never asked for. She grabbed her purse from the back of a chair, took one last look at Kane, and whispered, "Take care of yourself, and please, don't let her drag you down any further." Kane's expression collapsed, guilt and regret contorting his features as he realized, truly realized, he was losing the woman who had stood by him through affairs, scandals, lies, heartbreak, rebuilds, and reconciliations most couples would never survive. Lily walked toward the exit, shoulders squared, chin held high, every step a declaration that she was reclaiming her life. People parted like she was royalty, watching with silent respect as she approached the door, but just before she pushed it open, she paused, glanced back one final time, and delivered the sentence that would haunt Kane for the rest of his life: "If you ever want to earn your family back, you're going to have to learn how to protect it first." Kane stood frozen, devastated, Phyllis still stunned and rubbing her reddened cheek, the entire restaurant breathless from the emotional hurricane that had ripped through it. And with that, Lily Winters stepped out of society, out of the drama, out of Genoa City, leaving behind a world that had taken more from her than she ever got in return, leaving behind a husband who only realized her worth as she walked away, and leaving behind Phyllis Summers, who for once couldn't talk her way out of the humiliation burning across her face. It was the end of an era, the start of a new one, and the slap, that unforgettable slap, would be replayed 1,000 times in whispers, gossip, and legend across Genoa City, marking the moment Lily Winters chose herself, and walked away from the chaos once and for all. But even as Lily Winters sped down the dimly lit streets of Genoa City, her heart pounding with the weight of everything she had said and everything she had left behind, she couldn't shake the intensity of the moment, not the slap, not the stunned silence, not Kane's shattered expression, not the way Phyllis had finally looked small for once in her chaos-fueled life. The night felt unreal, like she was floating outside her own body, watching herself make choices she had rehearsed in her mind for months but never truly believed she'd have the courage to carry out. She had imagined leaving before, imagined packing a bag, imagined taking the kids and flying somewhere quiet, imagined shutting out the noise, the drama, the constant push and pull of a marriage too burdened by the past to stand on its own, but she'd always stayed. For Kane. For their family. For the hope that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow would be better than today. But tonight proved there were no more tomorrows left to wait for. Tonight was the moment everything came crashing down, the moment she finally drew a line, not for Kane. Not for Phyllis, not for Genoa City's gossip vultures, but for herself. Still, the pain of walking away gnawed at her, sharper than she expected. Love didn't simply evaporate, not after everything they'd been through, not after the years, not after the rebuilding, the forgiveness, the second chances. But love could no longer be the excuse she used to stay in a situation that kept breaking her. She turned onto a quieter street, the glow of the city fading behind her, and for the first time, she allowed herself to wonder how Kane was handling it, if he was still in society, frozen, lost, devastated, if he was replaying her words on loop, if he was blaming Phyllis, or himself, or both, if he was finally realizing that passivity had consequences. Lily pictured him sitting at that table, shoulders slumped, hands shaking as he stared at the door she'd walked through, not because she wanted him to suffer, but because she needed him to understand what she had endured, what she had been begging for, what she had tried to save long before he decided to try saving it too. A part of her hoped that this heartbreak would finally light a fire in him, not to chase her in desperation, but to grow, to evolve, to become the man she always knew he could be but couldn't force him to become. And then, there was Phyllis. God, Phyllis. The thought made Lily's jaw tighten. She could still feel the sting on her own palm, could still hear the shocked gasps around the restaurant as the redhead stumbled back with a look that bordered between horror and disbelief. For once, Phyllis had been caught completely off guard, not by a rival business scheme, not by a leaked secret, not by a clever plot twist she hadn't anticipated, but by the sheer force of another woman's exhaustion. And Lily didn't regret it. Not for a second. Phyllis had crossed boundaries too many times to count, inserting herself into situations she had no right to be in, whispering manipulative little comments into Kane's ear, stoking every insecurity she could find, and then standing back like a spectator as she watched Lily struggle to hold everything together. And when Lily finally snapped? When Lily